Welcome back to Shine Anywhere and Everywhere. I'm Inder and today I'm going to talk about 5 pillars of English fluency. The pillars on which your fluency can rest firmly and can withstand any adversity. To put it another way, you can speak English fluently and confidently anywhere and in any situation. Well, these 5 pillars are reading, writing, listening, speaking, and last but not the least, thinking. Always remember you need to work on these pillars to make them as strong as you possibly can. The stronger the pillars are, the easier it is for you to build a true and remarkable fluency. Imagine building a house. You want your house to be strong, right? For that, you need to construct a strong foundation. With fragile base, the structure is gonna collapse sooner or later. It can't withstand all weather conditions. And the strong and unshakable foundation only comes from solid pillars. And the same goes with building fluency in English. The more fluent you want to be, the harder you need to work on the pillars. While working on these pillars, you develop a large and broad vocabulary, gain a deep understanding of grammar, and attain correct and accurate pronunciation. So let's talk more about each of these pillars of English fluency. Now, if you want to be a fluent and confident English speaker, then first and foremost, you need to learn how to be a good and active listener. Yes, listening is super important. It shouldn't be difficult to realize the importance of listening when we consider that it occupies 45% of total time we spend in communication, which is significantly higher than speaking, which accounts only for 30%. So evidently, listening plays a vital role in the acquisition of a language. It is a receptive skill that awakens your awareness of the language. The sound, tone, rhythm, intonation, stress of a language can only be perfectly adapted through listening. Now let's talk about what to listen. I recommend listening to different types of content and resources. It helps you to be a well-rounded speaker. But you should always start with content that is interesting to you and matches your level of English. It can be a bit challenging but not frustrating at all. Even more important is to listen to only genuine English when you are in learning mode. Listen to native English speakers through TV, movies, or YouTube channels. Listening to native English speakers gives you the opportunity to acquire the language rather than learn it. Repeated exposure to native English gives you the original experience of the language that translates well into your fluency. Reading is another powerful and effective tool for building your fluency. Although reading doesn't directly impact your spoken English, as you don't get to exercise your speech while reading, yet it has a deep influence in the development of your fluency. There are many ways that reading can help you improve your fluency. For instance, it expands your vocabulary, exposes you to different sentence structures and expressions, and helps you to understand the nuances of the language. Now, there are 2 types of reading we often indulge in: intensive and extensive reading. Intensive reading is where you read to learn new words and phrases and to analyze grammar. While reading intensively, you take pauses every now and then to look up new words and phrases and to understand syntax and semantic better. Extensive reading, on the other hand, is when you read just for fun or simply to obtain information. While reading extensively, you don't have to stop to look up anything. So should you go for intensive or extensive reading? Of course, intensive one. Now the obvious question that pop up in mind is what to read. Well, when you are engaged and interested, you learn better and gain fluency faster. So explore and find the content that is interesting to you and best suited for you in terms of your level of English. There is nothing more frustrating than reading something that is too difficult to understand and doesn't hold your interest. So avoid such content by all means, or you're gonna find it hard to stay hooked up to the activity. We tend to pay a great deal of attention to our ability to speak English as it is highly desirable and sought after skill. Considering all the noise concerning the importance of speaking, other skills are often ignored. And one of the most underrated skills is writing. But you can't overlook the contribution of pen and paper when it comes to building your fluency. You can really do some amazing things by writing regularly in English. Like speaking, writing is a productive skill. So you get a chance to produce the language every time you write something. But unlike speaking, writing is a much slower process. You have all the time to organize your thoughts and to process your words. So let me tell you what happens in the process. The words and phrases move from your passive to your active vocabulary. And your active vocabulary is what comes handy while speaking. Whatever you have in your active vocabulary comes to you instantly and automatically while speaking. So the larger the active vocabulary you have, the easier it is for you to speak fluently. Moreover, with tons of words, phrases, and rules in the language, it's kind of hard to memorize them all. But writing, particularly by hand, is proven to be effective and helpful in retaining information and cementing it in your mind. So if you constantly write in English, you are less likely to forget what you have learned. And the more active knowledge you have about the language, the easier it is for you to build your fluency. Another underrated yet powerful and positive habit for building fluency is thinking in English. If you want to speak English fluently and naturally, then you need to stop translating in your head before speaking and learn to think in English. To build fluency in English in the real sense of the term, you need to make it a part of your internal speech first. And this can only be accomplished by thinking in English. In our non-English environment, we don't get too many chances to practice our spoken English. So when we speak the language, our speech is way slower than the normal one. This is because our mind first translates from our native language to English, which is absolutely not a natural way of speaking a language. English, like any other language, has its own sentence structures. So when you translate before speaking, you don't sound natural at all. To get around the situation and to sound more natural, you need to make thinking in English your habit. And believe me, it's gonna bring you a huge step closer to your goal of attaining fluency in the language. And it's not as difficult as it seems, but it does take conscious efforts and practice. You can always start with a small step. And the small step is to think in individual words. Just look around you and try to name different objects in your surrounding. And the next step is to think in simple sentences. And when it becomes easy, then you can move on to more complex sentences. And when you continue to do it, it becomes your habit. I reiterate, thinking in English is widely important if you want to build a natural fluency. Practice makes you perfect. You must have heard this phrase a million times simply because it's true. And it is true in the context of building fluency in English too. Now, most of the fluency comes from practice, a consistent and relentless practice of speaking English. No matter the world of knowledge you have about the language, if you don't speak it, you can't be a fluent speaker. To build fluency, practice of speaking is indispensable. You have to open your mouth and exercise your speaking muscles. Now, of all the pillars of fluency we are talking about, speaking is the most exciting and challenging one, particularly if you are learning English in a non-English environment. It can be quite stressful and nerve-wracking in the beginning. Imagine doing this all simultaneously while speaking, communicating your idea or thought, formulating right sentences, having appropriate vocabulary and grammar, and using correct pronunciation. That's a lot, isn't it? So it's very easy to become self-conscious. And the moment you become self-conscious while speaking, things begin to go wrong and you start sounding unnatural. So one solution to all the problem: practice and practice a lot. That's right. But where to start and what is the right direction? Well, first of all, let me tell you that your non-English environment is the biggest challenge for you. So change it immediately at your level. Create an environment for yourself where you get to speak the language every single day, even if you are on your own. Now, I understand that it can be quite intimidating for anyone in the beginning to speak a new language in real life situation. So you can always start with speaking activities that provoke less fear. Talking to yourself, shadowing and imitating are some of the effective ways to build fluency in the beginning. Do it often to gain fluency and confidence. And when you are a bit comfortable, then you can start interacting with people who are close to you, friends, colleagues, family members. And the next obvious step is to get out there and speak the language in the real world. The more you get out there and do it, you are going to continue to build your fluency. So these are the 5 pillars of English fluency. It is only when you build on these pillars, you get to experience every aspect of the language that enable you to build an extraordinary fluency. So well, this brings us to the end of today's video. If you liked the video, leave a like. Consider subscribing for more videos like this. I'll see you very soon. Until then, it's Inder with Shine Anywhere and Everywhere saying goodbye.